And joining Gord Stellick, John Shannon, Doug McLean, our friend Corey Hirsch, popping by Hockey Central at noon. How are you, Corey?
I'm doing great. Gentlemen, I miss you guys. This is great. It's good to hear your voice.
Well, it's good to hear your voice, too. And you can weigh in on the goaltending. We're saying, how simple is it just you got one goaltender, Murray, out goaltending the other goaltender, Rinne, and what do you do if you're, I don't mean about changing a goaltender's for Game 3, but what do you do if you're Nashville and after the first two games?
Well, I don't think you do anything. I mean, I was listening to you guys talk a little bit there, and first game Rinne was bad. There's no question. You can't let that many goals in on that many shots. Last night they're right in the game, right to the third period. Then all of a sudden you give Kessel a 2-on-1, you give Malkin a 2-on-1, and you're giving up all these scoring chances. You cannot open up against the Pittsburgh Penguins because I don't care what goalie you have in net, they're going to score. That is a team that can score goals. Now, Rinne has to get better. The one thing in the playoffs that we do know, though, is Nashville has a great home record in the playoffs. I think they're 7-1 is the record at home. So you don't change your goalie. This is the guy that got you there. You're not going to all of a sudden change up your goalie. I know his record against Pittsburgh isn't great, but he's 7-1 at home in the playoffs. And you have to give him the opportunity to play in Game 3 and to turn this series around because he's the guy that got you there, and he's the guy that can do it. So I don't think they changed anything.
So I think you're one of the guys responsible for Rinne's collapse, to be quite honest. Well, you ran around yapping for 2 years, make the pants smaller, make the pads smaller, and then the one goal last night was a direct result of you running around shooting your mouth off for 2 years.
Hey. You know what? I just made the suggestion, right? We can blame Kay Whitmore at the league.
It's Kay. Okay.
Right now, over to Whit.
So let me ask you this: as a goaltender, what would you expect the next 48 hours to be in trying to deal with Rinne? What should the goaltender coach? What should Laviolette? What should the organization be doing in talking to him and managing his expectation?
Well, what you need, really good question. What you need to do in a situation like this is you need to almost take the pressure off of him because what Rinne's done, and it's not helping him, is that he's put way too much pressure on himself, and it's hard to perform. I'm sure he's sitting there feeling like if he doesn't play well, the team's not going to win. And when a goalie puts a ton of pressure on himself like that, it's hard to win. You think of the Marty Bergers and the Patrick Waugh and those guys. Everything was water off a duck's back. Like, you couldn't phase those guys. I know Pekka Rinne, as a person and watching him as a player, he's the type of guy that'll put a lot of pressure on himself. And you watch Matt Murray's composure at the other end and in his interviews, he's like Marty Berger. He's like Patrick Waugh. It's just kind of like monotone. Nothing really phases him. So if Rinne wants to get back in this, I think his coach and his goaltending coach, the idea is to start taking pressure off of him rather than, working on something specific in the game. You might go over some video, but you need to be able to let him know that his team has to be better in front of him as well.
So the public declaration after the game that Peter Laviolette hasn't decided who's starting goal on Saturday helps or hurts?
Yeah, I didn't really like that because I think he should have given him a vote of confidence that, he's your guy. Now, you look at what Guy Boucher did in Ottawa when Anderson played that one game, and it was terrible, and someone asked him, and he just flat out said, you're kidding me with that question, right? And then Anderson went out, what did he make, 50-some saves the next night? Something ridiculous. So I don't really like the way he handled that. He knows him probably better than I do, but I think you need to give him that vote of confidence. And like I said, that would kind of take the pressure off of him. Now he's kind of got Rinne thinking, and you don't want your goalie back there thinking about what's going on. He wants to know that he's the guy and that he's going to play and that there's no issues. And it's Game 3 at home where he's been great.
I think what you've got to do if you're the coach or the goalie coach is you approach it like you have approached it all year long. If you approach it any differently, Rennie's going to think, they're nervous about me. They don't like, So approach it the same way as you've approached it all season long. Whether he was struggling or on top of his game, keep the consistency there. He's going in. He knows he's got to win the game for them. He knows he's got to be the number one star for them to beat Pittsburgh. Pekka Rinne has to be the number one star. He's dumb if he doesn't think that.
Well,
He's got to
absolutely.
think
He knows
that.
Yeah, he knows that.
Simple.
But in the same sense, they have to be better in front of him. They
Right.
can't have a third period collapse like they did,
But-
right? Especially in Pittsburgh.
Okay, now, have you noticed, Corey, does he have happy feet right now?
You know what? He does a little bit. I noticed. You know the one goal that I really noticed it
What's
on
happy
was
feet?
That's what
The-
goalies talk about.
yeah, he's got a lot of movement in
Is
his
that like
game,
square
right?
to the puck, square to the shooter?
Let the goalie guy talk, will you?
Happy feet.
Well, the one goal he was way too aggressive. The rebound goal. I thought for a 6'7" goalie, why was he outside of the paint there off of that rush? And then the big rebound goes to Guentzel, and he just buries it in the empty net. There's no way Rinne could get over there to that. He didn't need to be that aggressive. But that's a good point with the happy feet because, that means he's overactive. He's moving too much. He's too aggressive, or he's not aggressive enough. And that's something that confidence has probably done to him a little bit.
See, that's the problem with our business now. Instead of just saying is he overly aggressive or no playing, we now say, he's got happy feet. Like, seriously, can we not just say,
Hey, okay, from happy feet to Marc-Andre Fleury. Does he have a happy psyche? I mean, taking it for the team. He did it once before.
Oh, geez, yeah.
What about now? Well, like outwardly, excellent, but he was being talked about Conn Smythe Trophy candidate. He was the number one goaltender at one point, maybe not entering the playoffs. And as Doug said, gives Sullivan all kinds of credit for the move he made. But do you think it is sitting as well with Marc-Andre Fleury as he's showing outwardly?
You know what? He's a good guy and everything, but you don't get to that level without having a competitive edge. And you don't get to that level by being a good guy. I think he's burning up inside. I think inside, I think he's best. I would be too. But he's very professional, and he's a great example for kids out there, and for my boy 17 plays hockey, and the game isn't always fair. If you're waiting for fair, you're going to be waiting a long time, and Fleury knows that. Another Stanley Cup ring too is it makes a big difference. If they were a team that wasn't going to be in the Stanley Cup Finals, maybe it's different, but he's got to get out of there. And they got to let him go. Enough is enough. I feel bad for him.
So the greatest interview so far in the playoffs for me was them talking to Murray the other day. And it was almost an emotional interview by Murray saying what he's learned from Fleury, not only as a goaltender, but what he learned from Fleury about being an unbelievably great teammate. And how Fleury has behaved the last 2 years is so unbelievable. That tells you what a quality guy this guy is. And if you're a team out there, Calgary, Winnipeg, Las Vegas, this is the guy you want really bad, because he is the consummate team guy for me and a hell of a goalie. If it's not for Fleury, they're not even close to being where they are right now. And Murray's been terrific.
He definitely got them there, yeah. And he teaches your other players, your younger players, right? That's the model that they have to live up to when they see something like that. So, of course, you want a guy like that in your organization, but he's also got to stop the puck.
But you know what? You walk in that dressing room, John and Corey, and you walk in that dressing room. Gord, I know Sullivan's done a nice job and Jimmy Rutherford's done a nice job, but you walk into that dressing room and you see Sid Crosby, and you watch how he behaves and how he plays and how he practices and how he handles himself, how does that not set this guy's leadership is right there with the greatest of all time from what I've watched this year and last year. For what that kid has gone through, not a kid anymore, but the way he's behaved himself, and Sullivan said it last night, Guentzel sitting next to Sid in the dressing room. What's that mean? Yeah. If you don't play your tail off, he has set such an amazing standard for this organization. It's unbelievable. It's over the roof.
To put the two together, the Fleury story and the Crosby, I think Fleury's done the same thing.
I agree.
I think what Marc-Andre Fleury's done, what will be interesting to me, and I don't want to get way ahead, is if the Penguins win the Stanley Cup, the trophy, and we always talk about who gets the trophy after the captain. And if you recall last year, guys, the
Trevor Daley was up there.
How very few seconds Fleury carried the cup. Yeah. Fleury was the third player, I believe, to take it after Crosby, and then Trevor Daley, and then Marc-Andre Fleury, and Fleury held on to it for about 2 seconds because he was unhappy. Yeah. But he did what he was supposed to do. This year, I think it'll be a different case because I also think he knows that his time in Pittsburgh is done.
Yeah, and to come in the way he come in against one of the best goalies in the league in Bobrovsky and outplay him for fun and outplay one of the next best goalies in Holtby. I mean, this guy is a great story. So, and Murray, and Sullivan's a great story too because he had the cojones to switch. I never would have. I wouldn't have had the cojones to do it.
Exactly. And if I've sat on the bench and you have no idea how hard it is to be a good teammate because if the other goalie plays well, you don't play. And like I said, you're at that level because you're competitive and you want to play. So there's a fine balance there, and he's come out remarkably. But that's why those young guys will come in, and they're so good at just coming in and being able to blend right in the team because they have an example to follow. And I'm not sure Edmonton had that example years ago, and not to talk about Edmonton because of how great they are now, but now Edmonton has an example to follow with Connor McDavid and Draisaitl and those guys. But Pittsburgh has had that for years. You have to go into that dressing room and fall in line, and that's why they'll be good for another 10 years.
You mentioned about Nashville, a strong home record. They helped obviously bounce back. A lot of things they can do. Do they need to be more aggressive? Can Matt Murray be a little bit unhinged? Do you want to test that a bit if you're the Nashville Predators?
Geez, if I'm the Nashville Predators, I'm thinking you don't want to open up. You almost want to play. I hate to say it because we took the game back a few years, but Ottawa was very conservative with Pittsburgh, and I think you almost have to play like that. You have to play almost a chess game with them because, like we saw last night, if you open up at all to try and get offense against Pittsburgh, they are going to shove it right down your throat. Mm-hmm. So. If I'm Nashville, I probably try and play a 2-1 hockey game, a really simple, good, strong defensive hockey game. Wait for Pittsburgh to make mistakes, and then you have to solve Murray, and he's been that good. So that's a tough one. He's mentally he's one of the strongest goalies I've seen in a long time.
Corey, thanks as always. We'll check in with you later. Appreciate
Thanks, Corey.
your time
Good luck,
today.
Man.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, guys. Great talking to you again.
Take care.